My name is Adéla, and I've been working as a UX researcher here at Kentico for the past 4 years. So it probably makes sense that today I will be talking about the research side of things, how to do it, and what not to forget, etc. So let me start by specifying what actually is it that I'm going to be talking about, because you might have heard a lot of names and a lot of different terms like discovery research or generative research or exploratory research or foundational research, etc. And I just wanted to specify because for me, I feel like these are all the same names for one thing, and that's the exploratory research during the discovery phase, actually. So yeah, but what does it actually do? And it actually does what it says. It's aimed to explore, to create knowledge or understanding where there is none or is somehow maybe limited. But it definitely does not intend to offer final and conclusive solutions to our existing problems. So beware. I want to talk about a bit how it's done, how this exploratory research is done, and it's typically qualitative. The data gathering methods that are often used are observations and interviews, and from them there are a lot of other methods that we can use. For example, the contextual inquiry and case studies or ethnographic research. But all of this is basically just it works upon the observations and interviews. What's really good to note is that exploratory research is usually not very structured, and it can very much be driven by the participant. In reality, it means that I can come into an interview with a participant with just the starting questions that define the area of interest. And then we will just work with what the participant brings into the interview. This way, we can actually make sure that we are not bringing some preconceptions or some biases of ours into the interview. So this is really good to know. And there's one very, very important method that's often overlooked, and Tomasz was mentioning it, which is really great, and I'm really grateful because it's secondary analysis. What it basically means is that we are looking into already existing data, and we are looking for some sort of information or insights into our problem space or our problem area. This is great because it can help us make the research more sustainable. And when I say sustainable, I actually mean that it saves time and energy, not only for us as researchers or designers or PMs or whoever is making the research or doing the research, but also for the participant. And for them, it means not only the time and energy, but also their willingness to actually speak with us. So it's really important to do it. And we should be doing it in every research or at the beginning of every research, if it's possible. Oftentimes, when we're doing exploratory research and we really don't know anything, it's not possible. But yeah, if it's possible, then we should definitely do it. Well, another thing I wanted to mention is with how many people should we be doing the research? It's usually a small-ish sample, and I bet that you have already heard the magic formula of 5 to 7 participants. And I actually wonder what you guys think and what's your experience when doing research. How many people did you need or use? Because for me, the magic formula is kind of makes sense and kind of doesn't. Because you can, for example, do case studies, which is a research with only one single participant, and it's still great and it still works. And on the other hand, you can have a very varied population, which means that you should include the different groups of people into your research, which means then 5 to 7 participants per group, which then makes the qualitative research very big. But in general, when we are doing exploratory research or qualitative research, we are usually gathering data until the topics that we hear are no longer new. When we are hearing all the repeating topics, then that's an indicator that we should move on and or go with the analysis. We are looking at the quality of the data instead of quantity, which is great. I like it. So if we can take a look at like an example from Kentico Kontent, which is the product that I work on, and there are different people that use different parts of the product, and they have different motivations and different use cases and different jobs. And so if anyone came to me and said, okay, we need to do this research with all of our users, that would mean I would take all of these groups and do I don't know, 5 to 7 probably interviews with every group. But usually that's not how it works, and usually it's more focused on like 1 or 2 groups, which is really great, and it should be like that. But yeah, this is a great question that I'm pretty sure some of you have heard it before in some way or form. Will the results be valid or with such a small sample, or is it applicable to all of our users? And I don't think it's the right question to ask, actually, because qualitative research is inherently different from the quantitative research. Qualitative research seeks deep insights and understanding of lived experience, whereas quantitative research seeks to generalize the information and to bring objective data. This difference in the core quality of both approaches really makes it difficult to apply these things, and I think that we should not force quantitative measures onto qualitative data. So just my thought. As I mentioned just now, the outcomes we can expect are in the realm of like understanding and deep knowledge, and getting to know the experience of our participants. And I think it's important to know that why we are gathering this knowledge. And I think that's because we want to make data-informed decisions, which means that we don't take the data as they are and work with them directly. We just take them and combine them with other areas or other aspects that are important for us, which can be product goals or market trends or whatever is important to you. And we take this bundle of information and we make decisions based on all of that. We are not making decisions based solely on the data, which means that we don't really have to do what the participants tell us. Sometimes they come up with problems and with solutions in one go, the participants, but we might not want to do any of it, and it's okay. I think it's more than fine. When you're looking at like tangible outcomes of discovery research, it can be even more questions that we have to answer, or another area to study or look into, or maybe a finalized problem statement or user journey maps or personas, and it all depends on what we are actually doing. Well, I would like to talk about how to actually do it. Of course, there are different methods and different approaches, but let's just take a look at some things that we should always consider. Even when there's no prior knowledge to a topic or an area, we should always prepare a research design with defined research goals and research questions. Usually when you see questions or words like why or explore or explain or how, it usually hints that we are going to be using the qualitative side of things. So that's a nice little thing that, why forming your research goals and questions can really help you in the methodology of things. And It's also good to know that research questions can change when it comes to exploratory research. We can start very, very broad. And while we are doing the interviews, for example, the research question can actually narrow down and be more focused on a specific area that maybe have the most unknowns or presents the greatest opportunities. We can take a look at the example here that I have. And it basically says that we aim to understand how our users learn to use our product. And this might be the general question. And during the research, we find out that they often, are taught by one of their colleagues. So this is maybe something that we want to focus on more. So this means that we can narrow down the broad research question and narrow it down to asking about how does it work when they are teaching, what questions are they asking. So this is something that happens, and it's good that it happens. So don't be afraid to actually change the research design in the process of doing the research itself. As Tomáš was saying, it's really, really important to collaborate during this phase because you want to align the expectations properly. I often saw people expecting different outcomes or results from the research, and then they were disappointed that it's not what they wanted or expected. So it's really important to align the expectations in this stage. There's one thing to note as well, and that's that when it comes to exploratory research, there are no hypotheses usually, because for you to form a hypothesis, you should have like prior knowledge and base it on that, which you don't have. So just to make it clear. This is actually something that we use in Kentico a lot. And I tried to make everyone actually who does research to use something like this. And it's a research design template. As you can see, it's fairly simple. There are some things to fill out, and everything has some sort of information and examples. And this is something that I believe Verča can share with you guys in the chat, I hope. So feel free to use it if you want to. I find it really helpful, especially when there are several different roles that are doing the research. It's not just the user research people. It's also designers and PMs. Great. So let me just in general talk about how to gather the data. There are many different methods, as you saw earlier, how to gather the data. But whatever the method is, it's great being open and curious. It's really helpful because it makes the participant feel right, and it can really help us gain deeper knowledge. We should always work with what was being said or observed, and try to look at it objectively and without interpretation. We should vibe with the participant and try to understand their point of view without any judgment. This is something that I feel like you should collaborate with your team as well. You can invite them to the calls or the observations, and this is important, you should always include them in the discussion if you are narrowing down the research question. Because if you're changing the research design, everyone should be on the same page as well again. We talk very generically about how it's done, but let's just briefly talk about how to approach doing one of the most basic methods, and that's an interview. As I mentioned already, it's great to invite your team members to join in. It's usually PMs or designers, but as Tomáš said, they are not inviting developers anymore, but we were doing it, and and we are still doing it when it comes to usability testings. And there's one great thing, if anyone is too shy to come, it really worked wonders when I made it very, very clear that they don't have to speak, and that it's really okay to just silently observe, and that when I really communicated this well, people started, asking if they can come. So this is a pro tip. Another important thing, especially during the exploratory interview, is building rapport. It's a sort of a relationship with the participant, because it's way easier to share when you are feeling good, and not when the researcher is actually making you feel uncomfortable. And there's a lot of things that can be said about different interview techniques or how to ask the right questions. And I wrote some articles about it, so you can check them out if you want to. But the most important thing is to react to what was said, and not what you think was said or what wasn't said at all. And then focusing on asking about personal experience and trying to avoid hypothetical questions. Well, there. These are actually some things that I like to bring to when I'm doing interviews, and it really is helping me personally. The thing in the upper left corner is my notes, actually. I don't really like to write like interview notes during interview, because I don't think they would ever work that well as when I'm writing them from a recording. So if I can help it, I will do just these kind of notes. And this is what I actually write down is usually things that I want to ask about more, or probe deeper, or things that I find interesting or surprising, something that maybe I haven't heard yet, and then it can also help me during the analysis. And the thing on the lower right is a user interview checklist, which lists some things that we should talk about during the first and last phase of the interview. And it's really great. It helps a lot not to forget anything, especially when you are not used to doing interviews very often. And this is something that we can share with you as well. I think Vercha can share it with you in the chat again. And feel free to use it if you find it helpful. Great. So I really want to talk very, very, very shortly about how to analyze the data, because it's a very important step in the way, but it's a very complex topic, and it depends on what method are we using, or even on what approach we're going with to the analysis. So yeah, it's just like the flash that you can see here. I'm going to be running away from this topic and moving on, because it's something that I feel is for the whole book, and with the different approaches. So yeah, it's not that much time for it here. But let's say that you have the insights and you want to communicate them. So how to share them effectively? I feel like the most effective way is actually involve your team and make them part of the process. You can invite some of them to the analysis, but you can also share the unfinished results with them from time to time. Even though they are unfinished, it's okay to share them and talk about them, and that way everyone feels involved and as part of the process, which is really great. Also, when sharing your actual findings, and as cliche as it might be, video snippets and direct quotes are really very, very powerful, and should be incorporated in your in the results. There's one more thing that I find very important and often overlooked, and that's the limitations of the study. We should really look at look at the limits that we faced. Maybe it was the sample, maybe it was the methods, and we should admit to them. Because this way we can work with the results better, or even plan further research better. So it's really important to do this. Okay, well, we talked about what discovery research or exploratory research is, and you've heard me talk about some tips and some of the processes. And if I want you to take something from all of this, it would be this. Collaborate with others along the way, be data informed and not data driven, know what outcomes you can expect and aligned your and your team's expectations as well. And the researcher's mantra, be open and curious. Thank you. If you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Adéla. It was really interesting. I enjoyed it. Especially, I like the part about sustainable research and this stuff. I think it's always a good idea to run a secondary analysis and don't do, the new research over and over again. So I think it was really, really great. Before we go to Slido, we have some questions there. I have a question myself, because you have led countless of interviews and so many people preparing and leading the research. So what mistakes do you often see people make?
That's an interesting question. Well, when it comes to the exploratory research, what I often encountered, not so much lately, but in the past, it was the wrong expectations of the outcomes. When I started working at Kentico, I learned the hard way that I should really talk about it a lot and explain everything and discuss the goals with the people and talk about what kind of outputs or outcomes they're expecting. So this is something that's a really big thing, and I feel like should be taken care of well. And when it comes to the interviews, actually, there are some things that are happening quite a lot, especially with people that are not that much experienced, and that's asking the wrong kinds of questions, like leading or hypothetical questions, and that's something that's happening a lot, and also presuming. I often notice people are asking about things that the participants never talked about, and that they never, they never said it happened, and the person leading the interview is asking questions about something that wasn't there. So that's something that I think really we should work on as designers, I guess, and PMs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks a lot. I think that's fine. Answered. We have several questions here, so I hope we can have a look at least at some of them. So we have a question here. Maybe I didn't get that, but why 5 to 7 participants to speak to? Why this number? Do you have a hint?
Yeah, it's something that's when you are looking in the internet, how many people do you need? It's usually this sort of thing, and I feel like it's true. It can work, but what I said and what I really think is important to note this is that when you're doing qualitative research, you should do the interviews, let's say, as long as you're still getting new topics from the participants, which can be 5 to 7 participants, but it can also be 10 or 12 or 4, right? So it really depends very much on the topic that you're discussing with them and on the target population. I hope it answered the question.
Yep, I think so. Thank you. Another question here is, do you have any good tips for bringing stakeholders to discovery research? Is it a good idea?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, It depends on the relationships. I really try to build good relationships across the company, and when I'm tasked to do something, I just go out of my way to share everything that I'm doing and to share the thought process behind it. And this way, even if it's with the stakeholders or I don't know the management or whatever, I feel like I never encountered anything negative out of this. And it can be inviting them for a session, either either doing the research design together with them, or you doing it with I don't know, PMs or the designers or me, and then discussing the outcomes, the finished research design with the stakeholders, and showing them, okay, this is something that I'm going to do, this is how it's going to work, and then inviting them to the calls as well. It really works well to just overshare.
Mm-hmm.
And not everything has to be a meeting, right?
Yeah, definitely. Perfect. Maybe a similar question, but regarding developers. Do you invite all developers from the team to usability testing sessions? If so, isn't it overwhelming for the participants? So many people watching.
Oh, yeah, it's an awesome question. I'm very strictly for maximum of 3 people on our side at one interview call. We usually do remote calls and testings. That's why I'm saying call. Sorry, but I'm strictly for 3 people maximum, which is usually me or the one leading the interview, and either PM or designer, and or the stakeholder, and the developer when it comes to the usability testings. What this means is that usually the developers can take turns during one usability testing run, which is great. And some teams actually did this awesome thing that they took the recording from the usability testing and they watched it together as a team. All the developers watched it together and they talked about it, which I find really lovely, and it's really great. And it was not even my initiative, so it was it was really great. So yeah, it was a great question, and I feel like 3 people are more than enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great, thanks. I think we can go through all the questions as there's one left.
Okay.
So, do you store raw research insights? Is it good practice to leverage the insights outside of the given analysis?
Oh, actually, yeah. Actually, that's part of the secondary research. When you take the existing data, which can be, the raw research insights or any research insights, and you take a look at them from a different perspective or through a different lens, right? And looking for things that would help you better understand the things that you are now trying to understand or learn about. So yeah, I think it's definitely good. It's a bit different with quantitative data, I feel, but with qualitative data, it's definitely okay.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. There is one more question. I hope we can answer it as well. What are the good tools to store research insights? Any tips?
That's a good question. Well, we are using several different tools. We are using Product Board for all insights. Even if I'm doing like a interview or really exploratory deep quality research, I'm storing the interview notes in Product Board. But I'm not really working that much with them when they are there. And we also store the more the results. We are storing them in on Confluence. And what we started using like maybe even a year ago is Kontent, and it's actually a really nice tool to work with qualitative data, and it can help you code the